What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Comic Island. My name is Joey, and holy cow, have you read the Doomsday Clock issue 1 yet? If you haven't, then you are probably reading Dark Knight's Metal, because that story is all sorts of awesome. If your brain isn't already melted by DC's Dark Knight's Metal, then get ready to have it melted for the first time, or melted twice, because the Doomsday Clock is all sorts of wonderful Christmas goodness. Two ass-kicking events from DC makes 2017 hands down the year for DC Comics. Marvel needs to up their game, because I find myself gravitating to DC a lot more than Marvel these days. Yeah, we get the return of the original Wolverine, and the hunt for the Infinity Gems begins, but this isn't as exciting as DC Metal or the Doomsday Clock for me. So that's all the rambling out of me right now. Let's dive deeper into the Doomsday Clock issue 1 and see what stood out for me, such as the potential whereabouts of one of the three Jokers. I love the fact that they brought back the art from the original Watchmen series that they ran back in 1986, but obviously it is polished, cleaned up, and suits today's mainstream comic book readers, while at the same time gives the original readers of the Watchmen comics a hit of nostalgia. This story is a continuation after the Watchmen comics, not a reboot, so everything that happened in the comics took place, such as Rorschach getting evaporated and Ozymandias orchestrating the fake alien attack from space, leaving millions dead. But we pick up on November 22nd, 1922, a bit under a decade following the events of the original Watchmen comics. We pick up on the same somber tone that is the Watchmen, a doomsday-like world where countries are one button away from firing nuclear warheads at each other. This is a world at war. There is unrelenting violence and unrest. Russia has invaded Poland, and major media news channels are saying their final farewells as everyone is shutting down and evacuating to the safe zone because we are on the brink of doomsday. Side note, guys, the story picks up on November 1992, and this was done on purpose. In history, this marks the official release of the death of Superman on November 19, 1992. As you may know, he was killed by the powerhouse Doomsday. 3 days later, the events of the Doomsday Clock takes place. The timeline of this story is all sorts of messy, so take it with a grain of salt. And we are dealing with two different universes after all, so the character of Doomsday is stated not to be coming back for the Doomsday Clock, but the feel of doom and gloom is real. This is not fake news, people. And the word crisis isn't used in this story, but don't let that fool you. The final events of this story will have an everlasting effect on the DCU. The Watchmen is colliding with the DC Universe. That is huge. We are reintroduced to the vigilante Rorschach, or rather, a new one taking up the identity that Walter Kovacs created. This new Rorschach proves so by revealing the color of his skin to a new character that he breaks out of jail by the name of Marionette, and then her husband, a crazy convict that does not speak, by the name of Mime. This is the guy that we are going to focus our discussion on today, but let me wrap up my thoughts on DC's Doomsday Clock event before digging into the good stuff. Rorschach is on a mission to bring God back to Earth. He has partnered up with Ozymandias, who seems to be the mastermind behind finding Dr. Manhattan, who has left Earth for another uncomplicated universe. So let's rewind a bit back to the Watchmen comics. Ozymandias' plans to dupe the world into one nation has failed. He knows he botched the job, and now he is dying from cancer. This is one of the many reasons why I love the Watchmen. We get a maniacal villain that thinks about the greater good, even though he has to kill a measly million civilians to do so. Even Dr. Manhattan agrees, and he is basically a god. DC, in my honest opinion, has not done a villain this deep in a long time. Depending on the story, Lex Luthor is that deep. But even though Adrian Veidt was introduced back in the 1980s, his inclusion in the DCU feels refreshing and exciting. So now, back to the story. Even this new Rorschach is awesomely amusing. He is forgetful, loves his pancakes, and one-liners, but more importantly, he frees the Joker and Harley Quinn. Okay, not the Crime Prince of Darkness and his princess. We are introduced to fresh new villains, Marionette and the Mime. One thing to note is that Marionette appears like a normal, sane person who loves and misses her child, and yet she is locked away behind huge metal doors. She is basically left in a bomb-proof safe as if she can turn into Doomsday at any moment. So she is the big wild card, whereas her husband, the Mime, was left with the general population. Now, the introduction of Mime was so creepy, and I don't get this sense from anyone else except for the Joker. So that got me thinking. Back in Batman Super Heavy, Bruce Wayne literally died after his battle with the Joker, but a substance called Dionysium jump-started his heart. Bruce lost his memories, and the Bat family finally sees an opportunity to allow their mentor to live a normal life by keeping the Batman secret from him. However, Bruce is still Bruce, and he was bound to find out. Duke Thomas, frustrated with the chaos in the city, confronts Bruce. He forces Bruce to take a look at all the evidence pointing to the fact that Bruce Wayne is actually Batman. So this is when it happens. Bruce Wayne, while sitting on a park bench, contemplates the Duke's words. A man sits beside him. Shortly after, Bruce Wayne states that he was in an accident nearby. The mysterious man replies, "Ha, that's funny. So was I." The green eyes, the pale face, that grin. Could this be one of the three Jokers? More accurately, the Joker that fought Batman at the end of Batman Endgame? When questioned in an interview, Batman writer and artist Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo basically dodged all questions as to if this park bench Joker was one of the three, but there are obviously heavy allusions to the Joker in the form of this mysterious man. This bench Joker also disappeared, making us believe that it could be part of Bruce's subconscious trying to remember buried memories. Or maybe the bench Joker pulled a Batman disappearing act like he always does with Commissioner Gordon. DC Rebirth started soon after these events, leading to a lot of us fans thinking that DC Comics swept this park bench Joker under the rug. But in DC Universe Rebirth one-shot, Batman discovers that there are in fact 3 Jokers, so he listens into one police announcement. One Joker is holding up a store. Second Joker is on his way to Arkham. No mention of the third Joker, so this park bench Joker might be just that, a normalized, sane person of the Joker himself. We have confirmed that one of the Jokers, the one left dead under the Batcave at the end of Batman Endgame, is seen in prison then released at the beginning of Dark Knight's Metal. This Joker is only cameo status, so we won't be seeing him much anymore in Dark Knight's Metal, I think. But it does pushes the 3 Joker theory a bit more. There are potentially another Joker left in prison at the end of Detective Comics' The Victim Syndicate. Take a look at the Red Hood. If you know comics, then you know that one of the Joker origins is that he started off as being the fall guy with the Red Hood, made popular in the Killing Joke story arc where we see a potential origin story to the Crime Prince. This victim claims to be the first victim that Batman ever accidentally hurt during his crusade on crime. The GCPD ran his prints and it didn't match anything in their database, which is very familiar to Heath Ledger's The Joker in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight. Then in Batman Beyond, a possible future timeline, the Joker gang attempted to revive the Joker himself, but we soon discovered that it is actually Bruce Wayne with Joker makeup. The story doesn't end there. At the end, the janitor for the gang beats the mastermind Terminal to death with none other than a crowbar. This is alluding to the crowbar that the Joker used to kill the second Robin, Jason Todd. But since this is a possible future story, we can't place this Joker in present day. Not yet anyway. So what are my thoughts on these 3 Jokers? I subscribe to the fact that there was one Crime Prince of Darkness, and it was split into this unholy trinity by Dr. Manhattan himself. Okay, I know, I will lose a lot of you guys, but stick with me for a few moments while I explain why I believe this. To understand this idea, we first gotta look into Action Comics. By the way guys, if you haven't done so yet, check out Arden's video recapping the entire Action Comics run last year. It's detailed and it will catch you up on all the events taking place in Action Comics itself. Okay, continuing on. From DC Universe Rebirth Issue 1, the original Wally West, The Flash, believes that this unseen villain we know to be Dr. Manhattan stole 10 years from everyone in the DCU to hurt them. Why, we don't know yet, but there is a malicious god out there somewhere. In Action Comics, we discovered that the universe reset with 2 Supermen, one from the pre-New 52, and one introduced to us in the New 52. Now, at the end of the Superman Reborn story arc, we discovered that these Supermen were split into 2, presumably by Dr. Manhattan. They have since rejoined along with both Lois Lanes, fixing huge problems and making Superman whole again. Remember guys, Wally West believes that Dr. Manhattan stole 10 years from the superheroes in hopes of hurting them. In this case, splitting Superman into 2 was meant to hinder the Man of Steel. If this is true, then it's a very safe bet to assume that Dr. Manhattan split one of Batman's worst enemies into 3 to torment the Dark Knight. So this brings us back to Doomsday Clock Issue 1. I have not felt the cold chill of someone's criminal act except for the Joker, but this mime character gave me those chills. He doesn't talk and he knows how to hurt people. Then after beating the escaped convicts nearly to death, he paints a blood-stained smile across his face. DC knows that this move is signature only to the Joker, so by doing this, DC is hugely alluding to this fact. Also, on the surface, the character of Marionette and Mime is very reminiscent to Harley and Joker, but if we dig deeper, they are in fact a copy of Punch and Jubilee, 2 lesser-known characters in the DC universe. DC leader Jeff Johns is setting up Marionette to be someone of immense power, showcased by the fact that she is held in a top-grade secured room with a set of doors meant to keep Doomsday himself out. And the character of Mime is clearly insane, evidenced by the fact that he wouldn't leave prison without his weapons. Then Rorschach helps him get to his locker. Mime pretends to pick up invisible tools. That is insane and just so good. So could this Mime character be one of the 3 Jokers? The idea that one of the 3 Jokers could be the comedian from the Watchmen universe is just too easy a guess, and besides, the comedian isn't insane. Dude has issues, but he is of sane mind. Another nice nod to the Joker is in the Doomsday Clock issue 5 alternate cover done by Gary Frank, where we see the Joker front and center. All this could be alluding to the fact that Mime is one of the Jokers. So now let's jump into the description of Doomsday Clock issue 2 for one moment. The description reads, in this second chapter, the Dark Knight discovers another relic from the Watchmen world. Lex Luthor pays a devil's bargain, and killer clowns trek through Gotham seeking a madman. Killer clowns? Gotham? Madman? All this is telling me is that the Joker's presence gets more intense the closer we get to Dr. Manhattan. Finally, the last thing I want to bring up in the Doomsday Clock issue 1 is that right after Adrian Veidt comments saying that we gotta find Dr. Manhattan, the scene jumps to Superman having a nightmare about his parents' death. He wakes up stating that he doesn't have nightmares. Again, this is alluding to the fact that Dr. Manhattan is manipulating scenarios and events in the DCU surrounding Superman most of all, but the DC Trinity isn't kept out of it, meaning Batman is affected somehow. The only logical explanation I subscribe to is that Dr. Manhattan split the Joker into 3 different individuals in hopes of tormenting and keeping the Dark Knight busy while he plots his master plan. But that's just my opinion on the matter. What do you think about the 3 Jokers theory? Thanks so much for watching, and if you like what we do and want to support us, please check out our Patreon page. The link will be in the description below. Thanks again, and if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time in another Comic Island video.